What's up everyone, this is Yiwen. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about this Arteza 100% expert watercolor paper. I was actually a little surprised by the price because it is actually more expensive than Arches paper. But you know, Arteza brand has always been this like lower budget like art supply brand to me, so I was just curious how good this paper is. So today I wanted to share with you my honest review and first test about this paper. Well, looking at the paper, I mean it's 100% cotton and it's 140 pounds. It's a pretty heavy, good quality paper. The texture seems a little bit rougher than I was expecting for cold press watercolor paper. So I hope it doesn't affect the painting I was gonna do too much today, but we'll have to see. Alright, so now I'm trying to tape the paper on this wood board because later I'm going to apply a lot of water to test how well this paper handles water. So this way, you know, after it's dry, it can potentially prevent the paper from warping so much. And also, you know, when you remove the tape, it will leave a pretty clean edge for the painting. So I think it would be pretty nice. So my plan today is to create a very simple landscape artwork. So right now I'm just applying some clean water on the canvas to prepare for the first layer of paint, doing a wet on wet technique. Let's take a closer look how this paint reacts with the water on this paper. And I do think it's overall pretty nice and flowy. There are areas relatively dry. It's because, you know, the brush that I was using, it's a very cheap synthetic brush. It doesn't hold a lot of water, so there might be some spot that was missing. I've been drawing on much smaller size paper lately, and I am actually using the wrong brush for this painting for sure. I think the brush I'm using is way too small for this, but I think it would be interesting to see how the stroke would show through this paper. It's not a terrible idea to test it out. So now I'm just going back and forth, try to create an even layer of paint and also try to create a nice gradients transition from the blue into the magenta. Alright, I'm pretty much done with the first layer of paint. So now I'm just using a hairdryer to speed up the drying process. So for the water, I am trying to do a wet on dry technique for the first layer. I think this way it can show through some of the watermarks. It would be pretty interesting effect. Alright, let's take a closer look how this wet paint gonna react on the dry paper. I have added a few more layers of paint, and I think overall the paint can remain its vibrancy on this paper, and it blends fairly easy. Now let's take a look how this paper handle glazing. So the color of the lake is still pretty light, so I decided to use watercolor pencil to test how it performs on this paper. And as you can see, a lot of textures started to show through, which is normal. But because this is water soluble like color pencil, I can, later on use a water brush to soften it up. That said, this is definitely not the kind of paper that I would want to use with regular color pencil. It just texture it's pretty heavy. So now I am just using a water brush to soften all those pencil marks. And as you can see, I think it's blending pretty well. It doesn't really push and lift up the pigment like underneath, but also able to give it a pretty even glazing effect. Alright, so now I'm testing the Nib-pen, and this ink that I'm using is it's called Noodler Ink. I think it's pretty like water based, so it does kind of like have this bleed effect on this paper for certain area, but I think the Nib-pen doesn't really peel off the fiber that much of the paper, so which is kind of nice. As I'm finishing up this painting, here is a quick summary and some final thoughts. Today I tested the watercolor paint, watercolor pencil, masking fluid, Noodler ink, and Nib-pen on this paper, with a variety of different watercolor painting techniques. The paper seems to perform fairly well and is able to handle a good amount of water. The textures seem to be on the heavier side compared to some other brand that I have used before. One drawback of this paper is that I think the texture doesn't seem to be that consistent throughout the paper, and that might be a problem for certain like art style. But if you're only doing like urban sketching or something more expressive, this might be a good option. Given that the price of the paper is very expensive, even more expensive than Arch's watercolor pad, I am expecting the same or higher quality. That being said, this is just the first impression. I'm going to do more test comparison and paintings to share my experiences with this paper. So please follow my channel and turn on the bell to see more content from me. Thanks for checking out today's video. Bye for now.